Rob's twin passion for MGA and Dad's Cortina. Restoring a car is never an easy undertaking. Doing so with a painful legacy of a broken neck suffered in a car accident, not to mention hip and knee replacements, and a heart condition, presents a whole new world of challenges. But nothing was going to stop Rob Gillam bringing the MGA he's owned since 1976 back to mint condition after the ravages of the salty sea air on the south coast had taken its toll. Not the pain and inconvenience of his injuries that have left him with reduced use in his right arm and neck, and not the sheer amount of work required to resurrect his beloved soft top.
It's a family heirloom. It's like a diary with 40-odd years of my life in it, almost like a pictorial, living, breathing record. I'll never sell it. My daughters both love it, and my 8-year-old grandson absolutely loves it. He says, "When can we go out in the racing car, Grandad?" My daughter gives me a one eyebrow up look because there are no seatbelts or safety features. It's got a door on it, and that's the safety feature. But I don't drive it mad.
The 1962 MG is not the only car in Rob's garage that holds a special place in his heart. His late stepfather's remarkably original Mark III Cortina XL has also proved impossible to part with. Bought new with £1,200 of stepdad Alf's retirement money in 1972, the tawny brown Ford has covered just 41,000 miles, and, apart from a respray, remains almost as it was the day it was driven out of the showroom.
It's unmolested, a proper little time capsule,
says Rob, who promised his mum Joyce he would get Alf's car back on the road when he died about 5 years ago.
It had been laid up in her garage, buried under boxes and looking a bit sorry for itself. The brakes were seized and the clutch didn't engage, but I got it back running and took her up to Tesco in it. She got in it and burst into tears. "It smells of Alf," she said. "He would be proud. It was the love of his life." My mum got another ride in it before she passed away. It was very emotional for her, and it would be an emotional wrench to sell it.
Born and raised in London, Rob trained as a builder before the skateboard craze of the 1970s took over his life, travelling the world as part of a professional team of boarders for 5 years in his early 20s.
I was part of the logo team. Brands like Dunlop, Kodak and Rank could hire us for the day, and we would wear their shirts. We were lucky enough to go over and skate with the Dogtown Boys in Santa Monica, California.
Otherwise known as the Z-Boys, this group of teen surfers practically invented modern skateboarding after taking over the empty swimming pools drained of water during a drought in Southern California.
They were always years in front. We learned a lot from them and took that to Europe and ultimately Australia.
He rode the skateboard craze, the new sport's golden age of discovery, until the wages died, the magazine died, and the advertising revenue died with it. The knee and hip replacements are a legacy of those 5 years of twists, flips, and, naturally, falls. But it was during this period that Rob first set eyes on the 1962 MGA laying abandoned on a housing estate near Croydon.
It was dumped on a housing estate with a tree growing out of it. The lights were missing, the seats were gone, and the steering wheel was hanging off the boss. I was there with my mate, Andrew. We used to restore E-types at the time, and I said, "I like the shape of that one." He said the only way to get it is to find out who owns it and buy it. I was knocking on doors to see who owned it, but no one wanted to own up to it, thinking I was an official. So I went back later that night and put leaflets through doors saying I wanted to buy it, and all of a sudden got a phone call saying, "Yes, come and get it." How I got it in that state, I don't know. It's always been a fairly wealthy person's car because it's so impractical.
Rob paid £45 for the dilapidated car and raided scrapyards to gradually put it back together.
It was a heap and sat in the garden for years being fiddled with. Bit by bit, we got it done. And it was used for about 6 years before we had a baby and needed something more practical.
The MG was laid up in Rob's mum's garage, where it remained for nearly a decade, and replaced by a Volkswagen 412 LE.
In about 1992, my mum was about to move and wanted the garage space back. The deal was, it's been in the garage for years. Come and tidy the garage up for me and get the car out. It was buried under boxes and got used as a sideboard, so it was a question of digging it out. By then I had enough time and money to do it, and the kids were up and running, as it were.
A skin-deep recommissioning saw the car back on the road, but Rob's move to the south coast came at a cost to the MG, fitted with a 1.8-litre unit soon to be seen in the MGB.
The car had to live in the road for quite a while, and the salt air got at it and it started to deteriorate. I had a bad knee and hip and couldn't do anything, and the car got worse and worse.
Then came the car accident that left Rob facing years of rehab to regain partial use of his right arm and neck.
A car crashed into me, and I broke my neck and badly damaged the radial nerve. After 3 years of physio, I got about 85% use back in the arm and 80% in my neck, though I still can't look over my shoulder.
So, when Rob moved house again and painstakingly erected a workshop, he enlisted the help of a proper old-school mechanic in his 80s to help him once again return the MG to its former glory. This time, the restoration was bones deep.
Me and an old boy called Henry, who is also disabled, started taking it apart about 5 years ago and finding experts to help us. He was a local mechanic in Hove who was recommended to me when I needed some work done on the Audi 80, and he's been around ever since.
Rob sourced a genius welder to repair the rusting bodywork, a sprayer in his 70s to bring the shine back to the light blue paintwork, and a carb expert from Sheffield to rebuild the twin SUs.
He's blind in one eye, and although he quoted me £350, he gave me £100 back because they weren't anywhere near as bad as I described them. That kind of old-school honesty and workmanship has nearly all gone. He was building Lagonda carbs from drawings for a customer. He can't find his skills anywhere.
The brightwork was replaced, nuts and bolts swapped for stainless steel, and a few concessions to modernity were added, including power-assisted brakes, 2 electric fans to aid cooling, and an emergency cutout switch.
As I saw the car coming together, my confidence came together with it, and my drive to get it finished.
So how did it feel to be back behind the wheel of a car he first drove nearly 40 years previously?
An ear-to-ear smile is the only way I can put it. You could tell how happy I was from the bugs on my teeth because I was using the Brooklyn screens. It was a joy to drive. The handling is really good, like it's on rails. It's a little bit tail-happy when it's damp, but nowhere near like an E-Type or a Healy 3000. The guys who helped me rebuild it get to use it too.
The heatwave summer of 2018 gave Rob plenty of excuses, if any were needed, to stretch the MG's legs over the South Downs.
I've had a lot of fun in it this summer. I take it out in the sun and run it up to Devil's Dyke to blow the cobwebs away. On good roads with good visibility and sports car curves in them. There's a place we call the Surprise Car Park, because as soon as you pull into it, you can see half of Surrey, Kent and Sussex. It's a stunning vista. You can have a quick pint up there. Bring it out the long way home round the back of the dyke and give it a good stretch along the A23 and home.
The MG may be Rob's pride and joy, but it's the Coke bottle Cortina 1.6 XL that also attracts the attention, with so many having tales to tell of Ford's best-selling saloon.
With the MGA, people will walk past and go, "Nice car, mate," and keep walking. But they will talk to you about having their first baby in the Cortina or "My dad had one," etc. People clap as you go past the bus stop. So many people have got fond memories of the car, more so than the MG. The guy who MOTs loves it. He said 5 and always asks if he can take it for a test drive. I was taking it to a little car show we have in Hove, and a Mercedes stopped in front of me. The bloke jumped out with his palm up. Hold on, hold on. Got his phone out and started taking pictures of it. People behind me started tooting. If you want to write a book, just park the Cortina on a reasonably busy road and people will come along and tell you their memories of them.
The car has lived all its life in a garage and was only resprayed because a window on one side of the garage had allowed the sun to bleach the bronze paintwork.
It looked like 2 different colours. Other than that, it's 95% original, including its original clutch. No one ever sat in the back seats. It never went on the motorway, and if you open the boot, it's like new.
Over the years, Rob reckons more than 100 cars have passed through his hands. But these 2 cars have remained, while all the others have found new owners.
The MG has just stuck around. I admit I was going to sell it about 10 years ago, and my daughters, Jodie and Carly, said, "No, you can't." I was overruled by the girls. I spent about £20,000 doing it up, and every day I have it, I get more of my money's worth.